Smithsonian Institute.
You tripped over it too.
You did too?
Well, yeah, when I was reading it in the previous segment.
The Smithsonian Institute on Tuesday seemingly bent the knee to the Trump administration by providing the White House with new documents on its planned exhibits.
The institution has been facing significant pressure from the government to back off any divisive narratives and give a positive account of the country's history and of its culture. Smithsonian Institution received a letter from the White House on December 18th, 2025, stating, "We wish to be assured that none of the leadership of the Smithsonian Museums is confused about the fact that the United States has been among the greatest forces for good in the history of the world. We will have no patience for any museum that is diffident about America's founding or otherwise uncomfortable conveying a positive view of American history, one which is justifiably proud of our country's accomplishments and records."
In August of 2025, President Trump ordered a wide-ranging review of the Smithsonian museums and exhibitions and later fired the head archivist of the National Archives. Earlier this week, the references to Trump's 2 impeachments on his photo at the Smithsonian's National Portrait Gallery was removed.
Here is Lindsay Halligan, special assistant to the president, speaking to Fox News in August. Halligan explained Trump's concerns about ideologies being displayed in the museums.
The Smithsonian is really supposed to be a trust instrument, and what's happened is it's become more of a platform upon which the curators and leadership at the Smithsonian can push ideological narratives. And we really want to help the Smithsonian be the gem, as you described, that it is, and represent our nation properly and truthfully.
Meanwhile, some criticize the move, calling it a way to whitewash history. Jim McSweeney, a retired archivist from the National Archives, said, quote, "Here's our history. Here's our shared experience. We have to learn from it and never go back and try to whitewash or change anything based upon political leanings."
Smithsonian Institution operates 21 museums and a zoo in Washington, D.C. that are among the most popular tourist destinations. The institution was founded by Congress in 1846 and is governed by a board of regents that does include members of Congress and also the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Well, what the government is saying to the museum is pretty vague, so it's hard to judge whether it's good or bad. I don't think the museums should neither whitewash the unsavory elements of our history, nor should they relentlessly demonize or focus on only the negative, right? You take the good with the bad, you teach real history, you teach our shortcomings, you teach how we overcame them. So representing all of that fairly is maybe not an easy task. The administration might have, they're giving some guidance here. It's not specific, so I can't say that it's wrong. They didn't say, this is what we object to, except the Trump impeachment thing. Obviously, the government should not be giving input on how it is currently portrayed. There's no way for a government fairly to say. I mean, the museum shouldn't even try to grapple with like what recent history is. That's recent history is still being determined. Is still being decided how we feel about it, right?
I think the letter that they sent to the Smithsonian on December 18th that had the word "a positive view of the U.S." is the part that threw me off. They didn't say exactly what they're looking for, but history is not always positive. History is about evidence. Yeah. No, but our country's history is not always positive. We've done a lot of incredible things. As I mentioned in my lens, I'm excited to be an American every single day. But there's still a long history that the country has to still acknowledge. We can't say, "Oh, this looks too bad." We can't let people internationally watching us on the 250th birthday think anything bad. Like, it doesn't have to all be positive.
No, so just that, it has to all be positive.
That word, "a positive view of the U.S.," that means that. So what's considered negative then? You have to really define that, because the president hasn't recently just been on attack of the Smithsonian. He's been picking through every little thing that he doesn't like, particularly about some of the biggest museums like the African American History Museum, which is one of the newest ones and provides
it's a great museum.
It's a great museum that provides some real insight into the complexity and nuance that is our country. And the beautiful thing is that when you do, which I think they understand, when you get to the top of the museum, because you kind of walk from the bottom where the worst of times was happening for people of color in this country, and you get to the top and you see all the great successes, from going to slavery to the first Black president, and how powerful that is. And you're actually walking through the experiences. Some of them happen to be not positive, they're negative. But you get to see how resilient we've become, and hopefully are hopeful for tomorrow. So for the president to pick through what he thinks is good and not in that, why don't you allow archivists and people that study history, that are trying to be apolitical and put information out in a museum? And the Smithsonian has made mistakes before where they've corrected or apologized or fixed things.
Like when they put that...
The thing online only, yes, the sheet.
The white aspects of white supremacy culture, made up pseudoscience.
Right, so that was an error on their part, but I think understanding that hopefully a lot of Americans are still excited to be American and really still want to push for their change. As I mentioned again in the lens, that MLK was fighting for all these things and one of the most hopeful figures around a time where he wasn't even at the time in 1963 that popular of a figure because he was pushing against the grain of what was happening at the time, from segregation to the way that Black people were treated to even anti-war messaging. He was really against the grain. So think about somebody right now that's pushing against it. It's not like they're going to be praised all the time, but it's part of our history. And you look at it and you're like, now you can see him as resilient. So the brave people that want to speak up and say, in our country's 250-year history, we had some times that were considered the worst of times. Hopefully slavery is the worst of times. We can acknowledge that and say, look how far we've come and look how far we still have to go, without thinking that this is a bad thing.
Acknowledge that.
Or a negative thing.
But we should celebrate that our founding principles are a great statement of liberation and democracy, that we accomplished so much in terms of science and technology, in terms of good on the world scale. We defeated Nazi Germany. We saved the planet from extremism of a most evil and illiberal kind. Like, we should celebrate and tell that story. We defeated the Soviet Union. We are a force for good in the world and that truth should be passed on to the next generation in the form of instruction and reflection.
I saw a lot of the first, I think, installation happened right after the New Year in Washington, where they had the projection. And I thought that was a beautiful thing. I just think as we think about the messaging that's going to come out, the president can't just be in charge of that. Because we know that sometimes he likes to bend the facts in reality. So he needs to step away and let other people organize this.
But he can say it should be more positive.
And strong arm folks. He should avoid doing that too. A new poll suggests that more and more American adults are identifying as political independents. We'll talk about that next. Don't go anywhere.